Hello, Ian here with another tutorial. This time I'm going to talk you through how I created the stone spell from our magic sound effects pack. Now let's take a listen to the spell. As you can hear, there's a few different things going on there, lots of kind of stones breaking and explosions, as well as a few more kind of generic magic sounds. Now first, let's listen to the high sounds, and I'm going to talk you through each sound effect and tell you why I used it and what effects and whatever else I used on it. Now I really went to town on my reverse effects for this sound, and I like reverse sounds because I think they have a cool kind of magical sound to them. You take realistic sounds and you reverse them and suddenly they sound really otherworldly and magical. So I've taken something very boring like gravel, and I've kind of tried to turn gravel into something interesting. So let's take a listen to some gravel sounds. Now some of these are just straight up normal gravel sounds, like this sound. That's just the sound of some gravel impacting against something. But for a lot of them I've actually reversed the sounds. As you can hear there, it makes like this interesting kind of slightly otherworldly sound. Slightly, it's not quite normal sounding. Same here. Suddenly we have this this rise up that suddenly has no decay, because a reverse sound obviously will have no decay because you're turning the attack of the sound into its end point. Now I've kind of shaped all these individual sounds to follow the pattern, the structure of the spell. So you start out with kind of a stronger sound, which is the sound of the spell beginning, then it goes a little bit quieter, and then rises up with this kind of long reverse sound into an impact. So this is to just add some nice kind of top end texture to the sound, and obviously it's a stone themed sound, so what better to use than gravel? Probably the most exciting use of gravel you'll ever see. Okay, some chimes now, some wind chimes first. Now I know what you're thinking, that does not sound like wind chimes, and again it's another example of the great things you can do by reversing effects. And so what I've done for this, I've reversed it, and just to talk you through how I do that, audio processes, reverse, and then done. And I've also automated the volume so that it rises up. So it works to kind of build up to that moment of impact. And it's just, I really like this sound because it doesn't sound anything to do with stones. It's nothing to do with stones, but that's fine. It's covering the magical element of the sound. And it's just really, really clear. It cuts through the mix. It's got this really interesting quality. You wouldn't know it was wind chimes. It just sounds like something unnatural. And it builds up to that moment of impact really nicely. Okay, now we have some chimes. Just normal chimes. And those are just in there just to give the top end some more shimmer, some kind of magical chime sounds which work nice for magic spells. Okay, onto the mid-range sounds. Now as you can hear with the mid-range sounds, I'm not really covering the build with the mid-range sounds, it's more just the start and the moment of impact. So, I've used a few different sounds here and I'll talk you through them. So first we've got just like a few, sounds of stones impacting or rocks impacting. We have this kind of more metallic sounding one, then we've got something more like this. You just kind of just general stone kind of sounds. We also have this stone dropping sound here. Basically you combine them together, you just kind of get a generic kind of rock splitting open kind of sound. Just to add some punch to that moment of impact. And then we've got some kind of falling rock sounds. Now I added these in there so that when you get that punch, it then sounds like some rock has kind of split open and all the rocks kind of crumbling out. And this is the sound of them crumbling out afterwards. A couple more kind of hit sounds. This one very soft and kind of covering the same area as these falling rock sounds, but with a bit more of a stronger impact, I suppose. And then we have slightly more magical sounds, so we have this electronic swoosh. Now this is the closest we get in this mid-range sounds to something that kind of covers the build up towards the moment of impact. I've automated it so it has a very quick decay, because I really wanted the decay of this sound to be more low pitch and also to do with the kind of falling rock sounds. I didn't want too many kind of magical sounds happening at the same time. But this is just something that nicely, very quickly builds up to that moment of impact with something a little bit more unusual, something more magical, something that doesn't just sound like rocks. Now we have this rocket launching sound, which is a firework and works really nicely as the kind of opening of the sound. It sounds like the magician waving their wand about. And then we have this stone dropping sound, which actually I've already showed you, but we'll listen one more time. There you go. Okay, on to the low sounds. So first we've got this explosion. Nice big explosion. Works perfectly for a kind of, you know, rock splitting open sound. Almost sounds like someone, you know, setting off some dynamite. So you've got a really big explosion, which when combined with all those rocks, really does give you the impression of something exploding on a mountainside or something. Next up we have this rocket just bang sound. And I've actually used a filter here to filter out the top end of the sound. Without the filter it sounds like this. But to me, I didn't really want that because that sticks through the mix fairly well. And with other spells that's fine, but with this one I really wanted the kind of higher end of the spell to just sound like rocks. Just to sound like rocks splitting open. Which I think... So I use this more as kind of like a bass impact, just like a bass thud, just to give some more body and power to that moment of impact. And then finally we have this bass rising sound. Kind of subtle, but it works to add some power to that build-up. So we only have really like the bass sounds and the high sounds to that build-up. Usually I would like to cover like the entire frequency range most of the way through, but I actually like the contrast in this one. You start out strong, and then it kind of goes down for the build, and then builds and builds and builds with these high and low sounds, and then the mid-range comes back in at the moment of impact, making a really, really, really strong, sudden impact sound. Alright, let's listen to everything together one more time. And there you go. I hope this was useful for you. Thanks for listening.